I was born in 1941, and therefore I was in school during the in school at Forest City Regional, or Forest City High School, during the 50s. And at that time, almost every one of the storefronts on Main Street was occupied by a business of some sort. There were many retail businesses in Forest City. During that period, people who live within 15 miles of Forest City used Forest City as their shopping center. There was almost nothing that they could not get on Main Street in Forest City in the 50s. We used to do a lot of things and get in trouble once in a while, but not too often. And it was pretty much at that time everybody had to be home at 9 o'clock. There's a siren in Forest City that blows at 9 o'clock at night, and it still does. And at that time, it meant it was time for young people to get home. And I worked in this newspaper. This is a family business. I worked here from the time I was 15 years old. And while I was in college, I worked here also, but with the intention that when I graduated and got my degree, I was going to get into the electronics field somewhere. But it didn't work out that way. I just stayed here and been here ever since. I never really looked for a job. Well, I should say, we had interviews down there, and there just wasn't anything that interested me, so I stayed here. In 1968, I bought the newspaper for my father, and I've been running it ever since. I went with two of my friends and a couple of the girls in the class, and we went to the drive-in theater down on the Scranton-Carbondale Highway. And when we got there, we found out it was a double feature. And I told my friends, well, I can't stay for 2 movies. I said, I gotta be home by 9:30. Well, they said, no, we're staying for... I came home about 11 o'clock at night, and I sure caught hell. I can remember that vividly. I pretty much tried not to let anything like that happen again. The major reason that I stayed was that I love to write. Even though I studied science, math, and physics, I loved to write. I did excellent in college in English and in history and in anything that required writing. And I still love to write. I have, besides the writing that I've done for the newspaper, I have written many articles for hunting magazines. every hunting trip that I went on, I wrote I took pictures and wrote stories, and submitted them to hunting magazines, and you get paid for it. They pay it. Some of them pay very well, and I've had dozens and dozens of stories. I also wrote stories of my trips, Russia, China, that were published in other newspapers and magazines and the like. I wrote an 8-part series of stories about China when I was there. My wife and I were in China for 2.5 weeks, and they were in the Scranton Times. The Scranton Times published it. The Scranton Tribune did some articles, the Cardinal News, and a couple of magazines that I submitted it to. But I love to write. Absolutely love to do it. Still do. Nothing I like better. What I do, I cover a lot of the meetings, the school board and the councils and township and whatever, and I write up the meetings, and that's principally why I stayed. Some of the jobs that were available at that time in the science field were nuts and bolts kind of jobs, and didn't have a lot of writing involved. And I at one time looked for, as I was there, I looked for a job as a technical writer, because that's but that didn't work out. But I love to read. That's why I stayed, and I enjoy it. I never for a minute was sorry that I didn't go elsewhere, but I'm certainly glad that I stayed in this area.
Up in the morning and out to school. The teacher is teaching the golden rule. American history and practical math. You study them hard and hoping to pass. Working your fingers right down to the bone. And the guy behind you won't leave you alone. Ring, ring goes the bell. The cook in the lunchroom's ready to sell. You're lucky if you can find a seat. You're fortunate if you have time to eat. Back in the classroom, open your books. Gee, but the teacher don't know how mean she looks. Soon as 3 o'clock rolls around, you finally lay your burden down. Close up your books, get out of your seat. Down the halls and into the street. Up to the corner and round the bend. Right to the juke joint you go in. Drop the coin right into the slot. You gotta hear something that's really hot. With the one you love, you're making romance. All day long you've been wanting to dance. Feeling the music from head to toe. Round and round and round you go.
Bathrooms that are open, coffee in the cafeteria. Enjoy the day, and we'll see you in 15 minutes.
I'm filming you for my documentary, For Forest City, the documentary thing.
For you! Ed! I don't really know where I'm going.
Okay, go ahead. What's the Steam Drum Marathon?
People run
In your own
for
words.
26 miles down to Scranton, and they start at Forest City. It's a race that's been going on for 16 years. Can you handle it? It's awesome. 26 miles of pure awesome.
honorable for us to be here in a free and democratic, rough time here. Free and democratic country.
Give me Mr. Kabicki. Mr. Kabicki, please. The timer's ready. Okay, seniors, would you please?
Runners on your mark. Set.